All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our first of two nights in a row of parent forums. If you attend this evening, you do not need to attend tomorrow. This session will be recorded and sent out as well. So welcome. It is already November 17th, hard to believe. And I am Tracy Smith, a superintendent, and I'm going to have my colleagues introduce themselves.
I'm Kathy Myers, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Kerforth. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction.
All right, and I'm going to have Jacob introduce himself since he deserves a big thank you.
I'm Jacob Lopez. I'm the Director of Technology for the district.
So a big shout out to all of my colleagues and a special thank you to Jacob for always hosting these webinars for us at all the hours that we determine, and that becomes his schedule. So thank you very much, Jacob, always for your support and for managing all of it so smoothly. So we're going to get started. The purpose of this forum is to go through the progress that our in-person learning task force has made so far, and to give you updates on where we stand, and to also, at the end, we want to hear from you. And we'll do the raise hand feature. And so as we're going along, if you have some questions or comments that you'd like to say for the second half of the forum, please go ahead and write those down. Thank you all very much for coming. A lot has changed since the last time we were actually talking about in-person learning. We started actually having a whole conversation and had a hybrid plan developing. So hybrid is when kids come in opposite cohorts in smaller groups for different parts of the week for in-person learning or in distance learning. And so we had our plan together in June and July, and then we got hit with the surge, and we were forced to start the school year in distance learning. And here we are again with another surge, and it would be really important to recognize that we are in a similar spot to when we talked about hybrid learning last time. However, we are very much earnestly involved in making sure that we have our plans ready to go. We continue to be very hopeful that we will hit that red tier and that we will, at that point, be able to bring small groups of students back on campus on a regular basis. Let's move forward. Okay, so our agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the in-person learning task force and the things we've been working on, our current context. Kathy's going to review health and safety, and then Mike and I are going to talk about two different hybrid models that we've come up with. Both the health and safety and the hybrid models have been updated for those current conditions and where we stand today, and then we'll have a question and answer time. Okay, so the in-person learning task force consists of parents, teachers, and administrators from all of our school sites, and they represent the whole range and spectrum of perspectives and experiences and desires for their students and their families and their own teaching practice as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic and what we're experiencing. So we deliberately picked out various voices from different parts of the community in order to have robust conversations that really considered all the different perspectives. So we have met twice so far. We're going to meet two more times before we take our plan to the Board of Education on December 15th for final approval. The educators have been developing the hybrid model, although we have also consulted with the parents and we'll consulting with all of you tonight. And we have focused heavily on the health and safety pieces of the plan, and we are choosing the best hybrid model for current conditions. So those current conditions, right? So purple tier, and looks like we have a lot of counties that decided to join us in purple. Many counties went all the way from the orange tier over to the purple. Some still just went from orange to red. Some went from red to purple. And our county, our numbers have also increased from last week's data to this week's data, and we remain in the purple tier. And so this is all indicating that there are surges in cases throughout the county, the country, the state, and even the world. And one of the key pieces that we are understanding as we move forward is that, and came to realization in our task force, is that bringing students back safely takes a lot of planning, thought, training, and communication, of which we will build on what we had completed during the summer. And it is also important to note that more than 30% of our families indicated preferring to stay in distance learning for the rest of the school year. And that's a significant number. So if you have a class of 24, right, 8 would stay at home, 8 would be in cohort A, and 8 would be in cohort B. And this ranges from, depending on the grade level, depending on the school site, between 20% and 40%. So key context. We do know that anything we can do to bring students back to campus will be a good thing. And key pieces. We also know that our current distance learning model is imperfect. It doesn't have all the social connections and academic connections and different experiences that we can provide when students are in person all day, full time in school. And I think it's very, very important that we keep in mind that the hybrid model will also be imperfect in its own way. I think it's very important that all of us mitigate our expectations so that we understand that with the constraints of the pandemic and the regulations for safety, that we will not be able to provide the same experience that the students had a year ago at this time. Okay, Kathy.
Okay. Looking at the health and safety protocols, we recognize that this has changed drastically as we've learned more and more about how the virus is spread. We do recognize that while we have not seen a lot of spread happening at schools, we see the transmission more in our community. We still need to do everything we can to keep staff and students safe when they're on campus. And we will be looking to our families to work with us on this, while monitoring your own interactions with other people, so as to reduce you and your family's exposure before your children come to campus. So some ways that we are looking at ensuring, as well as we can, the safety of our staff and students is through surveillance testing. That's one step that we're looking at, which is where we will be taking groups of staff and having them tested, even if they're not showing signs or symptoms, but as a way for us to continually test and ensure that we, to the best of our ability, don't have staff on campus who may not know that they have been infected with the virus. Face coverings will be critical. We will be requiring staff and students to wear face coverings. So again, we'll be reaching out to our parent partners to please work with your child and make sure that they will wear a mask. Masks do provide better coverage than the neck gaiters. However, if that's what your child will wear, we will take a face covering because it will be required for them to be on campus. Contact tracing is part of what we've been starting to build up our capacity to do. We are looking to fill a new position, a COVID coordinator. This person will help us with this contact tracing, is because we will have staff and students on our campus at some point. They will be able to contact anyone who has come in contact, close contact with someone who has tested positive for the virus. They will be able to do the notifications, ensure that we have all the materials that we need. Keeping our cohorts, which are our small groups, stable and pure will be a huge part of the hybrid model and everything that we do. The less mixing we have of students means the less exposure they will have, the less exposure staff will have, and the easier it will be for us to trace who they've come in contact with. We will be asking, as we have been our staff, but we will be asking our families too, to complete a health screening before their child comes on campus. There will be a questionnaire that we will have available to families, and you'll just check, does your child have a new cough, a sore throat? Are they running a fever? Please have checked your child's temperature. There will be a list of things that we ask you to do before your child comes to campus. We will be working directly with our staff who have their own health concerns on a process to support them to either be able to have an alternative way that they are able to do their position or other options for them. Ventilation and air quality. Living in Sonoma County, we know air quality has been a challenge at times, but the ventilation will be key to us keeping this airborne virus out of our classrooms as much as possible. We are looking at adding an additional tool, which would be an add-on to our air conditioning and heating systems, and it is a bipolar ionization, which means that it pretty much just zaps the bad stuff. So it will clean the air, almost scrub it. In about 30 minutes, it can clean all the air in a classroom setting. That will come in handy not only while we're in this virus time, but also when we do have smoke days or future issues down the road. Our cleaning protocols have changed regularly. Again, as we know more, we're changing, always looking for ways that we have the best products, but with the least amount of exposure of chemicals to staff and students. Classrooms will be cleaned every day, and some of the models you'll hear from in a few minutes continue to have an extra day between cohorts to ensure that we again get that ventilation and air quality improved. We're looking at making sure that our campuses all have adequate signage, reminding people of that social distancing, 6 feet, wearing a mask, and what our expectations are so that everybody coming onto campus knows which way they're going to walk down the hall, how far apart to stay. There'll be hand sanitizing stations. And we will have a care room at every site. And that's going to be a room that is separated for a student or staff member who does come down with some type of symptoms that could be COVID. We want to move them out of their hybrid or cohort or group to reduce exposure. And they will be taken care of there until they can go home. Thank you, Jacob. Those are really the big plans that we're looking at as a district. And from there, we'll be working with individual school sites to address their unique situations. Each school site has different entrances and exits to their campus. So we want to work with them to identify the best plan, how their outdoor spaces will be used, what their individual cleaning schedules will be, again, recess schedules, bathroom schedules, and who their contact person is so that you, our families, and our staff have someone that they know this is who I can go to if I have a concern or a question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. So all of those protocols, the health and safety protocols, there's a couple key points that need to be made. These are similar health and safety guidelines that are being used in schools that have already opened. These are plans that usually have to be either run by the public health officer or were designed accordingly by public health. And what schools that have opened are finding is that there is limited to zero transmission happening at school sites of the virus. So if a positive case were to appear on campus, it's because that was transmitted off campus. So what this tells us is that these protocols work. and that's very promising. Another key piece, so health and safety was very important in our criteria. Number 2, students and teachers will stay together. In other words, if a teacher has a set of students that's on their roster right now, that relationship will continue. That's our goal. And we would like a continuity of learning, right? So that is really important, especially now that we're a third or more through the school year. So we want a continuity of learning for in-person and for our distance learning students. We are learning from other districts. Some of these models that we are going to look at do take from the work that other districts are using or have designed. For elementary, because of the safety issues, then our nursing and health team is recommending that we no longer consider the AM/PM model. But that was kind of where we landed last year or in the summer. But it's not an option that we are considering at this point. And the other piece of the day is that lunch period is when students take off masks and they're eating. With the winter and weather, we can't necessarily guarantee that the students can be socially distanced outside and eating with their masks off. So we're feeling that a no lunch period is a good idea for that health and safety piece. As I mentioned at the very beginning, whichever model we pick and choose to go with, it will be imperfect. But sometime on campus for students who can be on campus is necessary. That social connection is essential. The 7th and 8th graders schedule, they are doing something very similar in that they're taking that summer plan that they had planned for their hybrid and now taking a look with a new lens, considering new safety protocols, new virus conditions, and also how well learning is happening in our current model. What have we learned? Where are we growing? Where are we going? How are students doing with distance learning in general? Kathy.
Yes. So for our special education classes, we will be looking at these 2 models and determining if one of them really is the right fit to support our students, or if there's one of them that we just need to make a few tweaks to. So we're very open to looking at the models and making the small adjustments that may need to be made to best address the needs of our students.
And finally, one of the last pieces for the in-person learning task force has discussed that maybe like TKK students might have a slightly different model based on their instructional minutes and age group than say the 1st through 8th graders. So we are keeping that in mind as well.
So good evening to all of you. Thank you guys all for your time to be here. I know all 3 of us appreciate you taking the time to be here and provide us feedback here pretty soon. We're going to look at a couple of different models. We're going to call them Plan A and Plan B. And then I'm going to go over Plan A, and Dr. Smith will go over Plan B. And then we will have some time for you to ask some questions or provide some comments on either the health and safety or on either of these plans. So before I kind of get into this and explain it in detail, I want to say a couple of things. Both plans, both Plan A and B, meet some criteria that Dr. Smith was just talking about, which is both plans meet the health and safety for our students and staff that was considered by the task force. Both plans also make sure that we are keeping students with their current teacher, so we're not having to reshuffle rosters, which was really important to the task force. Both plans don't have a lunch period on campus in person, and both plans offer live interaction for all students, no matter what decision is being made by family members. So you're going to see a Plan A and a Plan B, and within those, you're going to see 3 different cohorts. So there's Cohort A, Cohort B, and then distance learning or DL. So the distance learning or DL cohort that you'll see, that'll be for families who choose to continue to stay in distance learning for the remainder of the year. Families who choose to have their student return to some form of in-person hybrid instruction, those students would be split basically in half to either of that roster remaining for that teacher roster, they'd be split in half to either cohort A or cohort B, and then the distance learning students would be the distance learning students. So you could imagine a class of 20 being split up into 3 different groups of small groups, potentially maybe 5 in distance learning, 7 in cohort A, and 7 in cohort B, let's say. So the way that Plan A works is on Monday, approximately 8:30 to 11:30 in the morning. And again, these are times. This is a template. So none of this is set in stone. Please understand this is just a concept and an idea. Not all the details have been worked out here. But let's say 8:30 to 11:30, there would be a live check-in that would happen for all students. So both cohort A and cohort B and the distance learning cohort. You'd have a 20 or 30 minute check-in in the morning, take attendance, kind of set expectations for the day. And then the remainder of that morning time in this plan, cohort A on Monday would be in person. So those students arrived in person by 8:30 in the morning. They were there for the live check-in, and now they're receiving in-person instruction from the teacher in the classroom on the school site. The cohort B students and the distance learning students are going to be receiving asynchronous work. So let me define that, and just in case we have some people that don't necessarily know what that means and what that entails. So when you see asynchronous on any of these plans, that basically means work that is being done by the students distant from their teacher, not at the same time. So maybe the teachers have provided some assignments for them and they are doing them at home away from the teacher. They're not live on the computer. They're doing them independently at home. So in this model on Monday, cohort A would be in person with the teacher for a few hours, while cohort B and the distance learning students are at home doing asynchronous assignments that were assigned by the teacher, and it's offline. Then lunchtime happens. The cohort A students go home. If they need a school lunch or want to buy or purchase a school lunch, they can do that, and it would be kind of a grab and go. They would not eat on campus. And then in the afternoon, from approximately, again, 12:30 to 2:30, what would take place is the distance learning cohort and the cohort B students would now do synchronous work with the teacher. So defining synchronous work, meaning they would be live on the computer with the teacher doing it simultaneously at the same time. So synchronous meaning at the same time with the teacher. So the students who were in the morning doing asynchronous work now in the afternoon are live with their teacher getting some instruction and support over the computer. And Jacob, if you could scroll a little bit, then it would show that cohort A students for the afternoon are doing asynchronous work, which is what the other students were doing in the morning time. You'll notice there's a little hashtag or number sign next to some of the morning cohorts. That's because that's just saying that that's when the live full class check-in would happen. And then Jacob, if you could scroll back the other way a little bit, just to explain how this plan works is Monday repeats itself on Tuesday. So it's the exact same schedule that takes place on Tuesday. And then Wednesday becomes kind of that deep cleaning day for all the classrooms. Teachers have that day for planning and prep and teacher meetings. All students would be doing asynchronous work after a full live check-in in the morning. So all students would again check in the morning, and then they would do asynchronous work. And then Thursday and Friday are the same schedule as Monday and Tuesday, but you're reversing cohorts A and B. So now cohort B would be in person on Thursday and Friday mornings, while cohort A goes to the asynchronous and synchronous work offline and live with the teacher, but not in person. So that's kind of how Plan A works in a little bit of a summary in a nutshell. I know it's a lot to process and try to understand. Jacob, we can pretty much go through this quickly here. That's just a schedule of what it looks like for cohort A. Basically, you're in person, and then you're asynchronous, and then the flip of that. And then we just separated it out for cohort B. It's the reverse. And then the distance learning cohort for those families that choose to remain in distance learning. You're always doing asynchronous in the morning and then synchronous time in the afternoon where you're getting your live time with the teacher. And Dr. Smith's going to go over Plan B. Just to talk about a couple of pros and considerations there, in addition to the ones that we talked about that both plans meet. To kind of summarize it, Plan A allows for that deep cleaning in the middle of the week between the two in-person cohorts come in. And Plan A also offers longer periods of in-person instruction time 2 times a week in the morning for that core academic content. So that's kind of the differences that you'll see between Plan A and Plan B. Some of the major considerations to consider for Plan A is really the sustainability of staff, having a plan for in-person, asynchronous, and synchronous. So 3 different groups of student planning of instruction and just the sustainability of keeping that happening. And then Dr. Smith will talk about Plan B.
Okay, I hope you're writing your questions down. All right, so Plan B. This plan is about looking for a plan that supports that continuity of learning that we discussed, but also looking at the social emotional connection that's needed for our students, which of course could happen with Plan A. And this is an alternative plan for B. So basically in this plan, it's that same 3-hour block of time in the morning. And this is exactly what your students are doing now. So this is that 8:30 to 11:30, synchronous, asynchronous, virtual check-in, small groups. Your student would participate at that same level and rhythm with their same teacher and their same classmates, all students getting that instruction consistently. Cohort A, the distance learning cohort, and cohort B. Then it's the additive, the addition to the program is when the hybrid part comes in. So if we scroll up a little bit, no, the other way, scroll up, sorry. The cohort A would be in person for, hopefully we can get them in there for more than 2 hours in the afternoon. We'll see how the schedule works out. And the cohort A comes in the afternoon. And during that time, which at this point in time, we have discovered that many of our students kind of disengage right now in our current model. It's not something that, they are able to sustain to get back on the computer, to get back onto Seesaw, to get back onto Google Classroom and continue their work. So this piece of this is when the students would come and they would be with their teacher in their small group, and they would do academic engagement and reinforcement with fun and games mixed in. That is the exact type of learning that you would want to have happen in activity in the afternoon normally to keep students engaged. The other, and then if you scroll back down, yeah. Oh, wait, are we going to A? Oh, there we go. Sorry. No, go to B again. Plan B. The top of plan. Oh, wait, there we go. Sorry, folks. And then the cohort, everybody's in distance learning, but in the afternoon would be Monday, Tuesday, cohort A, Thursday, Friday, cohort B. And then we are, for the distance learning students in the afternoon who also need some social engagement and some, kind of games and fun, we would be training staff and working with other staff that could work with them during this period of time as well. So the advantages or the pros of Plan B, and once again, like Mike says, we know this is a lot to take in, is that there could be an increase in engagement and the actual distance learning piece, because now students have actually connected with their teacher. And the teacher, one of the key things that happens in the classroom is the teacher is able to remember something that happened in the classroom in the morning and come back to it in the afternoon and make a connection with the child and the student. And then the next day, when the child is in distance learning, they have remembered that connection. And they were expecting that the students, a possible outcome of this would be that the students would remain or become more motivated in the actual distance learning part, with more connection with their peers and their teacher. The academic time in both models in the AM is when students are most fresh. It builds on the model that we already have designed. So we're not, teachers and students and families are not having to completely get used to a different model. There's a learning curve involved with that, and possibly some time involved with figuring out a new way of doing things. Distance learning students will maintain their current learning model. Teachers can continue to provide curriculum for the asynchronous learning in a manner they have already established. So it's a continuation of what we've already been doing. We can, in the afternoon, we can focus on the missing pieces of our current model with more engagement in the afternoon for those students who come in person. And then one final pro to this particular model that should be part of any model in any consideration is when a cohort has a positive case, or when a teacher must quarantine, or when a whole school goes down, or if goes down, you know what I mean, like goes into quarantine or has to go into distance learning temporarily for a couple of weeks because there's been an outbreak at their school site, then this model makes that easier. So those were some of the pros and considerations that came out of both models through our discussion. And we felt that by sharing those, it would help you illuminate why we landed on these models. And I'm going to reiterate that we know that these are not perfect models, and that we understand that ultimately part of the role of a school is to provide structure for the family and for the kids, and the system, whichever model we go with, is not going to be able to fully provide that as we would love to be able to do. So, all right. Just really quickly before we go into Q&A and comments, we need to first choose a hybrid model, and we're really anxious to hear your thoughts. Then we need to plan and execute all the details that come up with that. We've gotten a good start, and we will continue to refine a lot of those communication details and setting up the classrooms and all of the signage, et cetera. We plan to bring the plan to the board on the 15th. We will continue to watch to see how close we're getting to the red tier. We know that we wouldn't get to start until January, but that's not feeling very likely if we're watching the trend of the virus right now. Anyway, so it would be January at the earliest for us all to be prepared and ready, including on the family level. And after the whole fallout of the hybrid model and what extended care and transportation and food service would look like will depend greatly on that model. So we take our Thanksgiving break and we come back on the 30th and we hit the ground running on getting all the details figured out, so we can be ready when the time comes. All right, that was a lot of information, and I think I spoke way too fast. So please ask questions if you need clarification. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, I'd like to know if you could please speak to how this would differ for the kindergartners.
Yes, that is a good question. It depends on which model we pick. They do have less instructional required time, and we would want to consult specifically with kindergarten teacher parents and teachers in terms of, I think in general, the model would be similar, but we might shorten the time or bring in kindergartners before in the morning, depending on which model we go with. So I wish I had an answer, but I will write that down. Tracy.
Hi, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate all the information that you've given us, and I also appreciate that both models don't expect the teacher to manage online and in-person students at the same time. I think that's just huge strength, and I really appreciate that. My first question is, will all the kids be starting at 8:30, or will the schools continue to have staggered start times? And then what if a teacher is medically unable to come back in person? I don't know if some of the teachers might be, have medical conditions where they cannot return to the classroom. So what would happen in that case? And, then lastly, as a parent, I have the same question about the kindergartners, but overall, I really like both the models, and I appreciate all the work that you guys put into it, and I think they both look very good. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Tracy. For as far as the staggered start times, we haven't designed that completely, but I believe it would have to do with the transportation needs, and we would start with that, and we would be as communicative as we could. It's not going to be that much different than what we have currently. Does that sound about right, Kathy? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And if Tracy or Kevin want to get back on and share your thoughts about what would work for kindergarten and what we would really appreciate that for knowing your student. Hi, Diana.
Hi, I have a question for you guys. I don't think I heard you discuss how students with IEPs would meet with their service providers in person, or if you had expected that to happen with a plan A versus a plan B. So for my family, that's a huge thing. I was just wondering, is meeting with their special ed providers in person kind of relegated to one plan or the other? Or is that still one of the details to get worked out? What have you guys talked about?
Thank you, Diana. Great question. Either model, we would continue to ensure that students are getting the services in their IEPs. We are looking at each specialist identifying students in their group who definitely need to be seen in person, and those that can continue to be seen virtually and supported virtually, we will have them continue with that. As you can imagine, just due to the numbers, us trying to protect our staff and our students, given the number of contacts that they could have. So we will be absolutely, both models would ensure that students would continue to get their services, whether it's in person or virtual will be on a student by student decision.
And I realized before we go on to the next person, I didn't answer Tracy's second question, which had to do with if a teacher needs to not meet in person, and that's not possible for him or her. And so through the process, we might be able to come up with the interactive process. We might be able to come up with an accommodation that would still allow him or her to stay connected with their students and have another teacher be in the classroom with the kids. Anyway, there's some different ways we can be creative, and we understand how attached both the teachers and their students are to each other, and we would want to keep that in mind as we move forward. Okay, that looks like Megan.
It is. Hi guys. So piggybacking on Tracy, the parent comments, how she said she was really happy that the teachers, neither of the models had the teachers trying to teach both online and in person at the same time. And I definitely understand the hardship that would be if teachers had to do that. But I was really excited about those swivel cameras that we heard about months and months and months ago. And I'm just wondering, are those still possible? Are they in effect? Would they maybe come in later? I know with my kids, well, I'm not sure how they would actually react to it, but as a parent, I would think, gosh, any engagement, even if the teacher is focusing on the kids in the classroom, for my kids to be able to watch and maybe do some supplemental learning or having more time with the same exercises would be great. But I totally get that it would be so tough for a teacher to manage both of that. So tell me more about the swivel cameras, please.
So let me explain what a swivel camera is to the audience. It attaches to an iPad, and the iPad is the camera, and the camera automatically swivels as the teacher is teaching on the whiteboard and or on the screen. And so it can project into the Zoom that students at home are experiencing. And the swivel cameras just arrived. We ordered them in August, and they were in such high demand, which is in many ways disappointing because we could have been practicing with them. We have still yet to decide. They're considering which model we end up using, what their functionality might be, and what a resource it could be used in the future. So it's definitely one of those details, TBD. Yeah. Hi, Charlotte.
Hi. Thanks for holding this forum and for providing parents the opportunity to provide input on both plans. So my child, he's in 7th grade, and I'm a huge advocate for the hybrid model. I'd love to see him physically in school as much as possible to experience middle school. So just my thoughts around both plans. Plan A, it seems to be a realistic approach for a working parent, such as myself. I'm on Zoom meetings throughout the day, all day. So what it would do is it would allow me to take my child to school in the morning before work hours, and then I can pick them up during my lunch hour to have them for the afternoon. So that would be my preferred approach. However, of course, if you go with Plan B, I would support that as well. Something to consider for Plan B, though, again, for the working parent, it is disruptive to the work schedule, right? Because it requires leaving in the middle of the day to go take our child and to pick them up 2 hours later. So I wanted to provide that. I wanted you to just kind of, I'm sure you've considered all aspects, but the working parent and the schedule, it's disruptive enough with our child at home, but having to leave in the middle of the day to take them is just something to consider. My thought, my approach, or my preference would be always in the mornings would be the in-person time. So just some feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
Good evening. Thanks again. I mirror what people are, their gratitudes for the time that you guys are putting into this thoughtful process, as well as sharing with us your process. I guess what I have is maybe more of just a comment, a cautionary comment about an experience my friend whose son is doing in-class hybrid learning in Novato experienced. The screening questions only address the children. They do not screen for the household. And so household contamination or infections were not being picked up. And eventually the child did get infected as well. So just being cautious with how we're screening and the information that we're allowed to collect, of course, with privacy issues, but just a heads up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, Valerie.
Hi. I was wondering, and I think I just missed this, what's going to be the deciding factor on which hybrid model is used? Are we going to have a chance to, in terms of like moving the Zoom meetings to the afternoon just sounds like such a nightmare. So if my input is, I would really prefer B.
Yeah, no, we're taking input right now in these two events, and then also we're having staff forums, and then in-person learning task force members are out there either on these Zooms and listening, and their feelers out there. So they're hoping to make a decision on Thursday after we've heard from everybody.
Okay, great. Because there's a lot of people that are, starting school and then it stops again. This on and off thing. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi. Okay, so I'm kind of inputting on the lady that was a few moments ago about the essential workers. I work for the post office, so obviously I'm a very essential worker. I take the kids I'm a single mother, so I take the kids to the extended care. But I'm noticing, especially with my youngest, him very falling behind on his reading and math. His older siblings help him out very greatly. But I'm wondering on everything that's coming to abroad, like how he's going to accept things. I mean, they want to go to school, they want to have that interaction, and how, if we can't have them physically there, how are we going to approach for them to get their education? My main focus is just his education, or their education, because they're all three of my children. And I understand your guys' predicament and place and what you have to do, and other parents are probably more concerned a little bit than mine. And my youngest has asthma, so I understand the predicament. But at the same token, obviously you guys have put in like a cleansing plan for the classwork and et cetera. But is there any way that even with the extended care that we can keep them more abroad? Because I understand the extended care, especially they're not teachers. We all know that, and we're not anticipating that. But especially my youngest, and the reason why I bring him up the most is he's only in the first grade. His technology is only to what is kind of substantial, and keeping track of time and et cetera. I mean, how are we going to address that if this continues? As far as him, I'm just mostly worried about the kids falling behind, if that makes sense.
I think, I would say, Suzanne, thank you so much that your concern is a mutual concern for all of our panelists and for all the parents in our Zoom tonight. It is uncharted territories for all of us. But I can tell you that the Rincon Valley School District will take everything we can to learn and start to make a plan for accelerated learning and working with our students, once we can see them more often. So we appreciate your concern. Carolyn.
Hey there. My question was very similar to the last woman. I'm really concerned about my son. He's really struggling. And I'm just wondering what resources are going to be available to him and to all of us if we do stay hybrid, or if we stay, distance learning. It just doesn't work for some students. They don't have the same kind of technology skills. And I'm worried that he's going to get held back and what that's going to do to him. And I'm just wondering what's available to students that are not, just hitting the ground running with this stuff.
These are good questions. We will keep making note of them. I know that teachers are also very concerned. Mike, did you want to address that at all?
I would just add that, they are great questions. They're concerns of all of ours. I'm a parent in the district as well, and I have a kid who I know is struggling and falling behind as well. So I get those concerns big time. We do have systems in place right now where our support coordinators are working with their principals and identifying different interventions to take place for students. So I would strongly encourage you to reach out to your classroom teacher and let them know that you do have that concern, and seeing what things are maybe possible for them to be put into one of those intervention groups and check in. That's what that afternoon time is really designed for. is for some of those small groups to happen so we can do some reteaching and do some intervention work. So hopefully I know that's taking place on every campus right now with several students, but if that's certainly a concern of yours and you're not getting that, I would definitely encourage you to reach out, and we're always trying to improve that as much as we can and find more time.
Lolly.
Hi, I'm sorry, I was a little late, so I don't know if you already mentioned this. And first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for all your hard work. I know this is a very difficult situation and times for everybody. I'm just wondering if we decide to try the hybrid model for our daughter, and then, she has asthma. My other kids have asthma. I have asthma myself, so we are kind of high risk. And I already had COVID. So I already lost people and family from COVID. So I'm very hesitant about having my kids going back to school. So if I give it a try and then it's not working, or, the risk for us is too high and we just decide to go back to be all at home, is that a possibility?
I believe that will continue to be a choice for people. It just makes sense to choose a model where that flexibility is possible. Even a flexibility from day to day, like if a child has a sniffle and you can't send them to school, but they could still learn from home, then you're creating a greater continuity of learning, which is what we're hoping for. So I am actually just answering off the cuff right now because we completely consider this, but I would say that considering the conditions that we're in right now and understanding what families need, and the idea that a student stays with their same teacher, then it would be okay for them to go back into distance learning. And it's going to happen. Right? There's going to be a close contact with a family member who has tested positive, and therefore the student has to stay home. So whether it's a choice or whether it's something that you have to follow by public health order, I believe that flexibility is just going to need to be built in. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, I have a question for you guys. How is it going to work when they're checking if we do go back to work? Are they going to be checking temperatures, or if they have like a sore throat? Are they still going to be admitted to the class? Home with me.
Nancy, I'll try to answer that. I think you came in and out a little bit. So I think your question was if we're going to be doing health checks, and we will be requiring that all families complete the check, which will include taking your child's temperature and asking some questions. If they do have any of the symptoms, or you answer yes, that they've been exposed, then we would ask that your child do distance learning and not come to school. We're still working out the exact details of how we'll screen students as they come onto campus, but all classrooms are equipped with a touchless thermometer, so that if during the course of a day or whenever our child is on campus, they aren't feeling well, or we suspect that they may have a temperature or fever, we have the ability to check it. And then we have those care rooms on campus where a student would go until they're able to be picked up.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for coming back on.
You bet. Thank you. I neglected or forgot to say thank you the first time around, especially to Mike, who helped myself and our daughter with a previous issue earlier in the season. Mike, we had a couple of conversations via phone. You may remember, I don't know. But at any rate, my wife and I very much appreciate the work you're doing. And with regard to the kindergartners, you had asked if I'd come back on and suggest something that could enhance what has been an underwhelming kindergarten experience for our daughter. We were there for school photographs the other day, and she was just so thrilled to be on campus, even under those conditions. She was so happy to be there. So for our family, we would like to see some sort of pod learning on a mornings or afternoons, 4 days a week. If we had to adhere to the Wednesday cleaning, that is perfectly acceptable. But anything we can do to get our little one the socialization that she needs and is craving. And I know a lot of families are going through this with their kids of all ages. And I also recognize that for the kindergartners, their academic parameters are much narrower than those of first through eighth. However, we see it as critical at this during these formative years. And I get that the answer might be, we don't know, but if it were limited hours in the morning or the afternoon, that would work for our family. We'll do whatever we need to do to get our daughter that socialization she needs. So again, the answer might be, I don't know, but if you are, as you just said, speaking from the cuff, Doc, maybe you could just suggest what kindergarten might look like. And again, I'll finish by saying thank you for everybody doing their very best during what is an extremely challenging year.
Kevin, we greatly appreciate the input. I wrote down everything you said, and I really want to work with the TK and K teachers and listen to your input and come up with an answer. I don't have one tonight. I would be reticent to come off the cuff on that one. Thank you. Christy.
I just wanted to comment that I'm really glad to see also that you're not trying to have the teacher handle distance learning kids with the in-person kids, because we're choosing the distance learning option. And I just really envision that as being, if she was trying to also do kids in person at the same time, it seems really easy for the ones, sitting there with the little square on the computer screen to feel pretty left out and jealous and probably maybe not happy about still being at home. But, with our health issues, that's what's best for our family. So I'm really glad at how you guys are modeling things, whichever plan A or B you go with.
Thank you.
Renee, I'm gonna have to make you a panelist to allow you to join the meeting. So I'm gonna lower your hand, but if you re-raise it, I'll put you in just to make sure you're okay to be a panelist, just because you're Zoom version. Okay, I don't see, oh, I do see Renee, okay.
You did.
Renee, you're ready whenever, or we're ready whenever you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go with it. I can't hear you guys, but I will speak. So I'm Renee Blair, and I have a 5th grader at Matanzas in a special day class. And I just wanted to actually first express what everybody else said here tonight. Thank you guys so much for the amount of time that you have spent looking into this possibility of hybrid learning. For me, in making the choice, I made the choice to actually stay in distance learning, which was very difficult because I do believe that my child does better in a classroom. But I really also looked at it as I am a teacher, and I know that the continuity of students being in a classroom together is very important. And about November, October is when students kind of hit their stride. And that's what I'm sort of looking at with him here. It's not totally ideal. Nothing is perfect, but he's finally gotten a stride. He's used to the transitions. They're not the best, but he's used to this. And so I want to speak to the 2 different plans that you guys had tonight, because when I looked at plan A, my first thought was, if I chose distance learning, his whole schedule goes away because he's now learning in the afternoon. Or then if I looked at Plan B, and here's where I want to say, Tracy, I think you did a great job in your presentation, not that the other person didn't, but you hit all the points that I wanted to make. Plan B provides more continuity for all of the students, given the entire school year. Keeps all of the students together in the morning from 8:30 to 11:30, just as they have been since the beginning of the school year. It makes it much easier, I feel, on the teacher also, because even though they're not trying to teach 3 different cohorts at the same time, in Plan A, I really looked at it and I said, I have to be making sure that this group is doing this and this group is doing that and this group is doing that. Whereas Plan B keeps them all together. I really like, Tracy, how you commented that the teacher who sees something in the morning could then work with the cohorts who want to go in the afternoon. And the afternoon time is when it is so difficult to get those students to engage. I really feel that this would be the best plan for the district to go with based on my thoughts as a parent and then also as an educator. I also am usually a working single mom. I'm not working this year, but so I understand how disruptive it is to have to go in the afternoon. But I also think that it's so important to keep the students' continuity, and that is really important to me. My one concern and kind of question that I might have based on what the parent brought up about an IEP is the individual service time for IEP service providers. And again, I think of this as a special education teacher, but I think of if they are going to have individual service providers, my son being in an SDC class, I want to support him having individual attention. I would also hope, Kathy, that we consider maybe not pushing into the class and having those being separate individual sessions rather than in the classroom, just because of that whole commingling of everything. And then lastly, as an early childhood educator, I really appreciated what the parents came on and said about kindergarten students. That is something that I really look at as a pre-K, TK teacher, is what we want to do in that age range is instill the love of learning. And that happens in the physical classroom. I'm going to give a shout out to the staff, the TK staff at Spring Creek, Lisa Walker and Desiree Reynolds. And I hope that you guys really tap into that, because I did hear those parents there. And I think that is so important for those kindergartners. And so if they can be grouped separately, myself as an early childhood educator, I really would support that for our whole district.
Thanks so much, Renee.
Lastly,
oh, sorry.
I have to figure out, Jacob, how to talk normally on here and not have to do this whole weird Zoom thing.
Hi, Melissa. You're in the same boat. I'm going to have to promote you to a panelist if you want to join. So I'll lower your hand and you can re-raise it if you want to, if you're okay with that. Oh.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Melissa. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Hi, thank you so much for your time tonight. And I agree with everyone else. Just a phenomenal job through Rankin Valley School District for, putting all this stuff together and keeping us informed, especially as a mother who has a newly kindergartner. It's just, challenging times. So we really appreciate it. As far as the next step, you guys have been sending out text messages and emails in regards to what our thoughts are and kind of a preliminary idea of who wants to do the hybrid. Will there be something else after these conversations we have, something else coming out that we can make our final decision on whether or not we want to be hybrid or stay the distance learning?
Yes, we will give you complete information so you truly understand what your choices are. And then, yes, we will ask you to commit, as a beginning planning stage so we can make the A and B cohorts, et cetera. So we will need that information. I'm going to guess it might be as soon as, right before we move into winter break, but we'll see.
Hello?
Hi. Hi, Melissa.
Hi. Hi. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents that I would vote for Plan B. I think it's the most conducive with what the format is already laid out, which the kids are already getting familiar with. I know my child going into middle school, she's in 7th grade now, would love some social interaction. So yeah, I think Plan B would be best. Just my 2 cents.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, and thank you very much for everyone coming together tonight. This is great, just having a community that we can all share.
Thank you. Kirsten.
Hello. I agree. Thank you, everybody, for coming together and talking about this. This is great information. I also chose the distance learning path. It was very hard choice. I really wanted to do A and B, but with all the risks and the number spiking and blah, 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 just, the usual. I had a couple questions though. On Plan A, what would so if it was Plan A, Cohort A in the mornings and Monday and Tuesday, and then the asynchronous B and distance learning at like 10 o'clock to 11:30 or something like that, what would Plan A would be doing during that time when they're still on campus with the teacher doing distance learning and Plan B? And for that, I'm thinking that Plan B is going to be so much easier on the teacher and the students as well, because they'll all be home in the morning and everybody will be doing that. And it's still hard for me to wrap my brain around how the teacher will be handling all this. And, like Mike, you pointed out that it's going to be hard for the teacher doing kind of 3 different models, if you will, during the week, A, B, and distance learning. And I think B is going to be more, it's going to flow better, it seems like, for me, from the teacher's point of view, and also the student's point of view, because they're all together. And then also with, Plan B, I kind of have the same problem with getting my brain around, okay, A and B, or A is going to be on campus Monday and Tuesday in the afternoon, and B and distance learning are going to be home distance learning, but without the teacher. And then just kind of, what are they, I guess they don't really need support because they're doing independent learning still.
So that's correct. It's asynchronous, but we were hoping that we can, be creative and clever and see what we can do to provide our students at home in the afternoon, for the ones who aren't in person on that particular afternoon, or who are always at home, that we would be able to provide some stimulating Zoom and virtual time with staff. So it could be the music teacher, counselor. And I feel like, Kirsten, you asked another question, which is, I think that the way that schedule is color coded, it's very confusing in terms of what it means for each A and B, and anyway. So anyway, you and I can talk and I can explain it to you better at some point. I think, Suzanne, if you unmute, we can hear you.
Okay, I apologize. One, like the other parents said, I just want to thank everybody for all their hard work. You guys have been phenomenal. Teachers especially been very phenomenal. My question was on the extended care with the children. I understand that they're not teachers, obviously. They're just kind of watching over them like they normally would do after extended care. But for the essential workers like myself, how are we able to, or is there some kind of program that can be in place where the extended care, because I don't want to hold them liable, because obviously they're not, to kind of just like have a schedule or printout that the teachers give them to kind of help the students, or to like put everything in place and make sure everything is done, because the parents aren't there physically to make sure everything is done. Because I found myself numerous times where Wednesday drop off and pick up, and then the day before certain things aren't done, which obviously comes on the play of my children. Obviously they're held liable, and I do hold my children liable. But if there's not an adult or like a teacher there to tell them, hey, this needs to be done, and it's not done, how is there like, I'm just asking if there's kind of like someone who could say, hey, here's your checklist, please and thank you, get this done. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense. And I'm not trying to put the extension workers in the predicament where they're teachers or where they're held accountable, because I'm not trying to do that. I know it falls on my kids, perspective. If that kind of makes sense.
It does, Suzanne, it does make sense. I guess I have a clarifying question. Are you talking about your current situation or in the future when we move to a new model?
Both, actually. Current very much, as well as, for example, okay, just to give you a scenario. I work for the post office, so I work some long hours. My children go to the extended care. By the time I get to them, it's close to bedtime. It's dinner and bedtime. So I don't always have time to counteract and check things, right. And then when I do get the chance, it might be too late. And I just don't want my kids to fall behind. That's my biggest thing. It's like they need their education. And I was wondering if there's a tool or any way that the extended care workers have with the teachers, and I understand there's a lot of kids. There's, it's not their job.
Yeah. So Suzanne, what I would recommend is we do have some solutions and tools in place for these situations, and it really tends to be very specific to the family, the teacher, and often the principal, along with the extended care coordinator. So I know you're super busy with your work, and I can't imagine how busy it's been with election and now holiday season and everybody, but I would say in general, I would suggest a reach out to your teacher if you can find the time and work on some systems that would make you feel better about turning in work.
Yeah, it's most so. If I'm not there to double check them, because they are at the end of the day children, so they're not going to always remember things. I know the teachers are phenomenal. They have their checklist, but by the time I get to it, it could be late. And, I could reach out to the teachers, which are doing more than they can right now, and I know it's a lot on my kids because they're young, they're in elementary. I don't expect them. They're not in college like I was. They can't be that independent per se. But I was just wondering if there was some kind of scenario or some kind of checklist that we could kind of put into place to help.
Yes, we have some tools. We have tools, and a lot of people are in the same situation. Teachers are extremely forgiving and caring and have other ways of knowing that your child is progressing besides whether they turned in the work that they did. So I would continue that relationship with the teacher at this point. Yeah. Thank you. Hi, Ryder.
Hi, it's Deanna. Sorry, that's my.
Deanna. I'm just, all I can see is a name.
I use my Mac. I didn't even know it was on it today. So I'll make it quick. I have a few questions, and the first few are other people's questions that asked me to ask. So I'll just ask you what they asked me to ask. So one of the first ones is you guys have been clear about the lunch break. Have we figured out anything about the AM break? If the kids would be together, if there would be an AM break, or would they just stay inside in their class?
We were planning a recess break, an outdoor recess break. So other staff would take a cohort of students out outside to play or move and have recess and within their cohort. and the teacher would get their break.
And
So
they would be, so I think what this certain parent was wanting to be clear on if the child would be able to eat and if they would be around other children while eating. Would they get a chance to eat break?
It depends on how long they're at school. It kind of depends on plan A or plan B.
Okay.
And we haven't reached those details yet.
Okay.
But if that person has a certain opinion about that, we would love to hear it. Like, if they were asking that question, it sounds like I'm inferring that they would want to make sure that there was a snack time in the morning.
Yeah. And I don't know, they were very vague, so I'm staying vague because I don't want to not ask the question they asked me to ask.
Fair enough.
Right?
Fair enough. Yes.
Okay. So the next question is, I think Sitlali asked this already, but if you choose hybrid, there may be a chance you can go to distance learning, and then can you do that vice versa if class size allows it? Like if you maybe after a month, no big outbreaks. Okay, I think it's kind of safe. I'm just hypothetically speaking. All right, it's safe. There's no outbreaks, at the school for a month. I think I want my kids to try hybrid. What would be the protocol there?
Yeah, I would say theoretically that makes sense to have that option, especially if there's room in the cohort. I don't have a system. We don't have a system created for that quite yet.
Okay. But it's not a hard no then, right? Okay. Next question is, normally if a child is maybe feeling under the weather, but not necessarily sick, doesn't have a fever or a sore throat, and maybe a parent chose to keep a child home, would they have to produce a doctor's note or a COVID test if the parent called in and just said, my son has seasonal allergies, he's going to stay home today? It seems like parents, if they chose hybrid, they're kind of worried that if they decided to keep their child home, they would have to maybe go get a COVID test every time they decided to keep their child home and didn't have a doctor's note.
Yeah, that has not been and is not planned to be our process. There is a limit of the number of times that a parent can excuse a child for being ill before a doctor's note is required. But we also understand that this is not a normal school year.
Okay. So that'll probably stay the same. I mean, I know we only have a half of a year left, but
yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'd also just add really quickly that came up as a pro for Plan B in one of our staff forums, because sometimes students might just have a little bit of a kind of a small cold or whatnot, and they would normally in today's situation be a little more afraid to come in person. But if Plan B were the option, they would have the ability to still join with all their peers in the distance format. So doing it all morning long, still getting their academic content. So that did actually come up as kind of a pro for Plan B for that specific kind of concern.
Okay, that makes sense. And I really like that point. And I think that maybe we should try to remind parents of that, because as a parent, I wasn't fond of Plan B, but now that you said that, Mike, it kind of was like, wait, my ears kind of perked up. It's like, wait a minute, okay, that's a really good, that makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't lose necessarily a whole day or multiple days.
Yeah, the point was the child might feel good enough to still attend class online and be live, but not feel well enough or comfortable enough to go into in person. So that actually kind of came out. That wasn't something that honestly the three of us, or I think the task force, had really talked about very much, but that did come out as a pro for Plan B. And so I just wanted to throw that out there since that did come out yesterday.
No, thank you for that, because that's something I did not think of at all. And the last one was, so if the parent chooses distance learning, because hybrid would be going on, and I think this may have been asked already tonight, but is there any chance, I know maybe we don't know what we foresee in the future, but of any kids with like IEPs and small groups, would there be any chance? I mean, if the parent chooses distance learning, then we're not going to invite them to campus to do small groups because they chose distance learning, right?
That would be the plan. I wouldn't say again that that's not a hard fast no. There could be a situation where the child needs their, OT services done in person. So we might make that exception. So again, it would be case by case.
Okay, cool. So that was the questions people asked me to ask. So now I have my own question. Is after, if, hypothetically speaking, if we figured all this hybrid stuff out and we were good to go and we chose A or B or whatever, are there any hurdles that the district's going to have to jump through? Like if we get this ironed out, do we then also have to hop through a hurdle of the teachers union and get an MOU figured out with them? And do they have to accept this? And is it going to be kind of like a haggle there and political stuff before we even get our kids to actually school, if we ever get out of purple tier? That's a question.
I can answer that. So we have a parallel process right now, and we have meetings planned with our teachers negotiation team. And we're working out the effects of the working conditions and changes in working conditions. And we are exactly focused on health and safety and the hybrid model. And we are hoping that through all of this communication that we will make it easier for us to come to an agreement. And that's our goal.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Tracy, Kathy, and Mike.
Hi.
I just wanted to first, I like the comments that were made about the continuity for Plan B, how it's just an expanded version of what we're doing now, which I think would be really helpful to students who are in a groove. And I do like the way it looks for teachers. It looks a little less of a harried schedule for our staff. The other thing I'd like to say about that, it seems like, and maybe you can get more specific about this, it seems like most instruction will be happening in the morning and that the afternoons would be more geared to social emotional learning and connection. And based on the time of day that it's in the afternoon, it seems like the temperatures would be warmer and more conducive perhaps to holding classes outdoors, which seems a lot safer to me. Would more outdoor time be an option in that model?
I think yes. I mean, just based on your comments about the weather and being outside, the goal is outside time as much as we can. Keely.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I too wanted to say thank you for your hard work on all these plans, and I think they both sound great. I kind of initially was leaning towards A just because of the more in-person time, but then the more that I'm hearing about B, I like that as well. So I think either way, I just really appreciate all the thought and care that went into them. My question that I had for you is, am I understanding correctly that once we go to the red tier and are able to start hybrid learning, if the county goes back into the purple tier, will we be able to remain at school, or does that automatically shut school back down?
That still needs to be decided. That's one of the details. The state does provide permission to, once you open in the red and you go into purple, that you can stay open. However, I don't know that the Public Health Department of Sonoma would agree with that or say that that's the best idea. So the jury's still out on that one, and we're still working on that piece. And once again, we're going to err on the side of safety. And yeah. Ria.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having me on here. I didn't think I was going to make it with all the people in front of me. I just wanted to say that I'm a single mom. I work for the county, and my hours are pretty steady, and my kids are older. So they're getting very restless here. I go to work every day. I'm an essential worker, and I have to leave them home by themselves. They don't mind that much, but they really are wanting some socialization. So us as a family have discussed this, and we do want to do the hybrid learning. But after listening to several of the questions, I did miss most of it, I have to admit. And listening to it, I was cooking and everything. I was wondering, now, are you guys, as the district, going to pick what type of learning A, B, or C that everybody's going to do, or are people going to select what they want their family to do?
Thank you for asking that clarifying question. It is a family choice.
Okay.
So we will be asking families, once we've determined and communicated all the different pieces to the plan, to submit their preference for starting, knowing that there might be some options to request to go into distance learning if you've been in hybrid, and vice versa. Those systems still have to be, and processes need to be worked out and clarified and communicated, but we will need that initial commitment, and then we'll plan around the choices of the families. Thank you. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, thank you for hosting this forum. It's really nice to get some in-person information. I think Plan B works really well with continuity, as well as, giving them that in-person in the cohorts will be a bit of a break, I think, and for the children to have some of that release, which I think is really necessary through play and social and engagement. I have young children, a kindergartner and a second grader. Is there any discussion of giving priority to those younger grades, the TKK, through second and third grade? Is there any thought of doing waivers before we're out of the purple tier for those, or, staggering it to where the younger grades come back first, just to kind of help with some learning, and not learning as a kindergartner, but as a district, learning how things are working and flowing?
Those are two decisions we haven't made yet, or even frankly discussed. I think that if we think about how many students would be arriving on campus at once, you're looking at 100 and 120 students and entering from different points of the campus. So I don't know that we need to stagger our start. It's very popular with districts who have already started to start with TKK, 3 weeks later do first and second, 3 weeks later do third and fourth. Well, by the time you spread that out, right, your 5th and 6th graders are waiting a long time to come to campus. And I don't know that that's necessary. So we're still considering that piece. We would have to look into that waiver process. And it might be something that we need to look into if purple, it tends to be where we stay. Hope not. All right, MC is what I see.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
That was me. Yeah, thank you guys for all that you do. Yeah, I'm a parent of a second grader, so I think their attention span is much better in the morning. So I see the benefits to that plan. But if it's in the afternoon with social emotional learning, I don't know if you could work some magic to roll it in with extended care. I know that cohorting would be quite difficult with that. And then I just wanted to, I guess, add the comment that I'm just curious, like, how the teachers are feeling, because I know it's like such a community discussion, and there's probably a lot of hesitation on their behalf, which I totally understand. And part of me is like, well, I will wait it out if you don't feel safe. But I know you may not be at liberty to share all that information. And then just the third comment is like, I have a child who we would like to enroll in kindergarten in September 2021. And we've had a lot of this. I know you guys aren't even there yet. But you're thinking we'll probably just enroll him, but it was looking like distance learning that we'd be looking at other in-person, like extended preschool options, and like what your messaging would be around those considerations.
Yeah. So to start with the kindergartner, please enroll your incoming kindergartner. I have a lot of hope that we'll be able to start in person in the fall, based on the same information that you have about vaccines. And we won't get into a debate about vaccines right here, but that's the hope. And so we will start January. We will be pushing out kindergarten registration information. And that most of that will be happening online. We have a portal now for registration. And then the other question was, how did the teachers feel? Well, the good thing is that the teachers have given input to everything we've shared tonight. And so we will be continuing to seek their input. And I know that they appreciate the support of the community greatly. Hi, Allison.
Hi there. I've just got a quick question. I didn't necessarily hear, are you going to be sending out a survey for us to voice our actual opinion on this, or do you really want to hear from all of us right now?
Well, there's only a few more people on the list, and I'm gonna do a hard stop at 8. But we have in the chat box,
That's disabled at this point.
Oh, I know. He was going to, Jacob was going to put a link for a form that you can more than happy to have you fill out and share your response that way as well.
Fantastic. And then my actual question is, in Model B, it seems like all of the primary instruction will continue in the morning on Zoom, and then the afternoon is for either individual support or enrichment or whatever will happen either independently or on campus. But with Model A, will the teachers actually be giving instruction repetitively, because they will have primary instruction in the morning with the group of in-person students? Will they have to repeat instruction for the distance learners and the second cohort in the afternoon, which just feels inefficient?
So that is one of the key questions to that model that has yet to be ironed out. And so I can't speak to that directly in terms of which content would be taught to whom at which point during the week.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Elvia. Did I say that right? Elvia, you can go ahead and speak. Jacob, we should probably go on. And then maybe she can raise her hand again. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, it's me again. I know, I've been coming and going. One, I just want to thank all three of you for everything that you're doing. One of my concerns that was brought up to me during this meeting was the teachers and all the, I guess you could say, all the realm that they're dealing with. You know, if they were to go to plan A and have distance learning as well as the students on campus, would they be okay with that? Because I understand that might be a lot on their table. And then how would that affect the students as well, if you have any input on that? I know we're kind of like in a trial period, or, you know,
right. Kind of, yeah, still figuring it out. And it's a good discussion point. I think that the teachers, agreeing with many of the parents who spoke tonight, that the idea of concurrent or simultaneous teaching, it feels very difficult and diluted for both groups. And so they, I think any model that doesn't include that would be their preference. If I was going to really completely generalize what the input that we've received from the teachers. I hope that helps. Hi, Beth.
Hi, guys. Thank you again so much for hosting this tonight. It's been very informative, a lot of great stuff. And also a huge shout out to all of our teachers that may be listening in. Thank you. I do have a quick question. I really love Plan B. One of the parents in our school had asked the question, though, in looking at trying to have more of the in-person learning, which I think we would get on Plan A. Do we know, or can you comment on how students in our district are performing right now on distance learning? There's been a lot of, news lately that students aren't performing very well. And I'm just curious to hear, how is Rankin Valley doing?
I'll just then I'll let Mike go because he probably has the real answer. Ours it's been very student specific. I think a couple parents said earlier, for some students, it's harder for them. It's, two-dimensional, where other students are thriving because they don't have the distractions of the students around them. And they really have that support and focus. So from my view, in general, it's been very different based on the needs of the student, but Mike probably has a big answer. Go, Mike.
I won't take a lot of time to speak to it, but no, you're right. It is very student specific. I think from a generalized statement to answer your question, are we seeing more students struggling than we normally would see if they were in a normal in-person situation? I've got to be honest and transparent and say, yes, I do believe that's the case. If we look at data, I think the hard thing that we're trying to determine with data is, again, to be very transparent and open with that, we're not sure how valid all the data really is, because a lot of it is being done remotely. We don't know necessarily, we don't have protocols in place for proctoring assessments and different things when they're done in a remote setting. So to know whether there is somebody in the background helping that student out or taking the assessment for them because they don't want their child or their brother or sister to do poorly on an assessment. We all want our kids to succeed. So we do know that some of the data that we have gotten back doesn't seem to always match. And again, that's just a very generalized statement. So it's hard to say whether they're completely struggling or not. I think what you may be referring to, and I don't want to make an assumption, but there's been a lot in the media, certainly about high school and the grades that students are getting in high school. That is very different than what we're experiencing in elementary. For us in elementary, it's just more about actually being able to track the learning growth of students. We have a different type of grading situation. So that is very different. But yes, to answer your question, are they struggling more in this environment than they would probably do in a normal situation? I absolutely would say that that would be the case for most students. Now, some students we have heard are thriving in this. Absolutely.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for all the care and concern. I know it sounds like several, if not all of you, are parents as well. So I know it's also coming from that portion, not just the administrative portion. I do for our family like the Plan A. Doesn't sound like it's the popular one, but that's the one that would work best for our family. And then I wanted to speak maybe more specifically to my situation. COVID's been hard, of course, for everybody, but it's kind of given me an interesting bird's eye view into my daughter's classroom, so to speak. Granted, everything was kind of thrown up in the air and we're having to do things in a different way. And I really don't know how teachers are doing it. I could not. I don't teach. This is why I don't teach. But my daughter's in a special day class. And I know generally speaking, special day classes are at least 3 classes, first, second, third, or fourth, fifth, sixth. And that comes with its myriad of things. My son's in another class and he's in a typical class and he's got 24 kids total and they're all learning at different speeds. But for a special needs class, it's intensified. And I completely get that. And my heart goes out to our teacher specifically. But what I've found is that because my daughter is probably lower functioning 5th grader, she's put into a group that isn't with the teacher all the time. There's a teacher and 2 aides, which I think is amazing. But I guess maybe it's not necessarily COVID specific, but it came up because I'm able to see kind of a window into the class. Is there any hope or thought for the district in finding people, more people for those classes that need more one-on-one time with the kids? Not saying that any other kid needs less time, and my kid is more special in that way, but it's just, it's hard to see the struggles, and especially with my daughter not getting even more so the time. Like my son will get whatever time you get with a teacher for whatever portion of the day they take, breaks. They're with the teacher half an hour here, 15 minutes, do their work, they come back. But generally speaking, I think she sees the teacher for the morning check-in and then at the goodbye. So I'm just wondering if there's any plan, if it does stay distance learning, or even if they go back to the classroom, if there's, I don't know if this is going to sound harsh, but for the qualified personnel that I don't know how this is going to sound, but someone that they're with, that it's not just they're staring at a computer and doing math playground, which is a great tool. I think those games are fun for my daughter. She really can engage with that, but it's not, I feel like she's being left behind. That's all. I don't know.
So Lauren, I'm just going to respond and thank you. I'm sure that was a lot of emotion going back behind all of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my email in the chat box, and I would encourage you to email me so we can talk. It sounds like there could be some tweaking that we can do to make sure that, all children are getting the support that they need, but I would love to be able to have a deeper conversation with you about that. So I will send that in the chat box. Feel free to email me.
All right, we've got 13 minutes. Angie.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to make it quick. First off, thank you so much. I think you all have done a phenomenal job at our district. And these parent forums are really great. I think I watched a 7-minute video to the improvements with Wednesday enrichment, which is so well worth the 7 minutes for the parents. Mike Herforth did a great job. And I have 2 older kids that went through our district, and I just had a suggestion that I thought of with some of the parents with extended care or needing additional support, being an essential worker. I can empathize with those parents. And I thought of my daughter's part of their curriculum in high school at Carrillo was one of them taught Spanish in 2nd grade, and just wanted to put it out to the district if we have the option to reach out for additional support, and maybe some of those students taking on supporting some of those kids like through extended care or I mean, there can be various different options. And we all know these kids know technology, so it could help in different areas. But I think the kids enjoy it, the high schoolers enjoy it. It's part of their curriculum, and maybe there could be a connection there.
Much appreciated, Angie. Thank you. Hi, Charles. Go ahead, Charles.
I wasn't really, thank you for addressing me, but as others have said, this is not an easy time for everyone, but you guys have been really amazing. I've been more involved with the Napa County School District as in my past, but we have our daughter there because we built a home over there after the fires. But I can say that we're all anxious, I think, we are anyway, to see us go back to a hybrid situation where the children can have some interactive socialization and get some direct responses. But thank you for the openness and constant characteristic to which you have allowed all of us to be a participant, be it by email or text or like tonight. It's really a meaningful experience to see a district like yours and really take hold of this and work with it as you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Rachel.
Hi. I was just wondering if you're going to send out the breakdown of the two plans before we make a selection.
So I think the idea was not necessarily to make a selection. That's a good question. I'm going to talk to Mike and Kathy after the meeting, and we'll get back to you. It's not that I'm trying to hide them. I'm more than happy to share them out. I'm just thinking about how we're eliciting responses. But maybe, Jacob, does it make sense? Could we put a link to the two hybrid models into the chat box so that people can download it to start with, and then they have their form they can respond to, just to start with, Rachel, to give you a chance?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Hi, Elvia.
Hi, sorry,
Hi.
my microphone wasn't really working.
Oh, I'm glad it's working now.
Yes, so hi, everyone, and thank you for all the information and the support that the district has provided for us. My son is in kindergarten, and I am out of district. My job is in Binkley area, so I was able to qualify for the out of district. And I'm an essential worker also. My hours have been changed just to be able to provide the support for our patients at their care home also. So my biggest question is, if I decide to stay on district learning, just because my son is a kindergarten, he's barely learning how to stay still on the chair and kind of follow directions. My concern is that if he does go back to his classroom, he's very social and wants to hug and be all around everyone. Is everyone in the classroom going to be able to have contact, or are they all going to be all separated from each other? How's that situation going to look into it with the classroom?
A great question. We recognize how difficult this is going to be for especially our youngest learners, but we will be requesting that staff and students respect that 6-foot social distancing. We know that there will be times when a paper has to be handed back and forth or some support needs to be provided. So we want to limit that time as much as possible. But we will be working with our students to help them understand that distance, that bubble that we want them to keep from each other.
And I would also add, Elvia, that our extended care staff has amazing fun, creative ways that the kids can interact and play in a socially distanced way and still have a good time. So we're going to be asking them to help us with that planning. Hi, Catherine. It's been waiting.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I'm really excited, and I wanted to say thank you for doing all this. This is amazing. I'm really excited. Okay. So I really think that, sorry, I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about Plan A because I feel like my daughter is a very social butterfly, and I think that being home has been kind of hard for her. I think the social emotional piece is huge for my daughter. Right now, I'd say more emotional, behavioral wise. I think that being in school with her peers and her teachers would be amazing. My question, I have two questions real quick. First question is, so if a majority of like the first graders choose to do distance learning and not come back for the hybrid model, could she possibly be with a different teacher, or because if you're going to bunch them in groups of 6 or 8 or whatever it is, would she possibly have a different teacher then and not her original teacher that she has now?
Yeah.
And
oops. Catherine, you might have muted. Catherine, I think you muted. We can't hear the second. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. Okay, Catherine, try again.
Oh, for the second question?
Yeah, the second question.
Okay, sorry. For the second question would be in the first grade classrooms or whatever classrooms they'd be in, do they have like desks or tables, and how would they be split up in distance?
Okay, so we can answer both your questions. Your daughter, the goal, as long as is that she stays with the same teacher no matter what. They have the same roster of classes and the same teacher. And then the second piece is, Kathy, what was the second piece? I'm so tired.
Desks and tables. Yeah.
Oh, desks and tables. Yes. Yes. So we'll either have all the desks that they normally would have in their classroom and then have the kids sit separated, or we will pull out half the desks and they will all be 6 feet apart. But we will be pulling out tape measures and marking and making it very clear what that needs to look like. So classroom design is what's next. Hi, Julia.
Hello, how are you?
Love the chicken picture, Julia.
Oh boy. My question is, first of all, I just want to say I know how complicated and difficult this year is, and I just appreciate the leadership of the district, not just at the district office level, but at the site level, as well as the teachers have just been incredible. My question is about PPE and the enforcement of PPE with students. I know that there are kids who have a hard time, wearing masks, and that there are various beliefs around masks and with families, and that there are different laws regulating the ages in which kids are required to wear masks. How does the district plan to enforce that, and will they enforce it from kinder on, given the research that shows how much masks can mitigate the issues with COVID?
Great question. And so our goal and plan is that all students will be wearing masks. If we do encounter a student, whether for health reasons, who can't, then we will need to sit down and come up with what's the best plan for that student. As far as the enforcement, it would be a tiered approach where we're really going to work with the family and try to identify, is there a different style? Is there a different type? Is there something that we can, a face covering that will work for that student? ultimately, we may have to have a discussion with a family about distance learning being a better option for that child if the other tiers of support don't work to help that student be able to wear a face covering at school. I don't know if that answered, Julia, the question you had.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Thank you for hanging in there. All 83 of you who stayed the whole time. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing your comments on the form. If you have more to say, we hope you got the information that, at least a start of the information of where we're headed. I hope you also know that how much we care about your kids and you and our families, and we're here to take care of you to the best of our ability within the limits that the pandemic has given us. So thank you very much for the partnership.
Good night.